We're live.
Good morning, my name is Jacob Paquette. I'm going to show you how to do your air brakes endorsement. So today we're going to start with our low air warning test. So to test this, I'm going to make sure that my air pressure is above 90 psi, and I'm going to make sure I turn my key to the on position. Now I'm going to begin to fan my brakes down until I hear the low air warning activate. If it fails to activate, or it activates below 55 psi, my truck is defective. My low air warning is activated at 65 psi. If it fails to activate, or activates below 55, the truck will be defective. So the next test I'm going to perform is my air pressure buildup test. To perform this, I'm going to press my clutch, start my truck, and have my RPM set between 6 and 900. I'm going to get my timer ready, and I'm going to begin timing when my air pressure reaches 85 psi. If my air pressure was higher than 85 psi, I would lower my air pressure to 80 and wait till it reached 85 again. Start timing. So, I'm at 85 psi and I'm going to start timing. Reached 100 psi, it took 23 seconds. It took longer than 2 minutes. My truck would be defective and out of service. Again, my RPM between 6 and 900 through that test. Next, I'm going to perform my governor settings. So to check my governor settings, I'm going to be testing my governor cutout and my governor cut in. So I'm waiting to hear my air driver exhaust, and I'm watching to see my needle stop moving. If the air pressure fails to cut out between 100 and 145, my governor cut out would be defective. So I've heard my air dryer exhaust and I've seen my needle stop moving. The governor has cut out at 135 psi. Had it failed to cut out between 100 and 145 psi, my truck would be defective. The next test I'm going to perform is my governor cut-in test. So to do this, I have to reduce my air pressure by roughly 20 to 25 psi to see my governor cut in. So I'm going to use my brake pedal. I'm just going to reduce my air pressure until I see, so I've heard an audible cue, hearing my compressor starting to build air pressure. I can see also my needle is starting to rise. My governor is cut in at 100 psi. Had it failed to cut in at 80 psi, my truck would be defective. The next test I'm going to perform is my air loss rate test. So to perform the air loss rate test, I'm going to make sure I have my truck fully charged with air and release my truck and trailer spring brakes. But prior to this, I want to confirm that my wheels are chocked and my vehicle is secure. After that, I will push in my truck parking brake and my trailer supply valve. This will release my brakes and charge my trailer with air pressure. I'm going to want to wait till I have the vehicle in operating range and it is sustaining pressure between 80 and 145 psi. At this point, then I'll be able to do the test. More Jacob. pressure is stabilized and it and prepare myself for my air loss rate test. I'm gonna put my key back to the on position. Some trucks have air electric gauges or pneumatic electric gauges. They will require power to make them work, and some trucks are just pneumatic, so it'll depend on your vehicle. Now I'm going to make and hold a full brake application. I'm going to ignore the initial pressure drop. When I see my needle is stabilized, I'm going to note the pressure. It's at 105 psi on my primary and secondary air tanks. I'm going to start timing. In this minute, if I lose more than 3 psi for a truck, 4 psi for a truck and trailer, and 6 psi for a truck and multiple trailers, my vehicle would be defective. For this vehicle I'm testing, it would be 4 psi. I've lost no air. Had I lost more than 4 psi for this vehicle combination, my truck would be defective. The next test I'm going to perform is the automatic application of my trailer's spring brakes. So to perform this test, I need to make sure that my air pressure is still between 80 and 145 psi. I'm going to pull my trailer air supply and listen for my trailer brakes to exhaust air and the spring brakes to apply. So I've heard the air exhaust from the chambers and I know my spring brakes have applied. If my brakes fail to apply in my trailer, my truck would be defective. The next test I'm going to perform is the tractor protection system. I'm going to test the tractor protection valve. To do this, I'm going to remove my blue service line and I'll get back into the truck and make a 5-second brake application. So, again, making sure that my air pressure is between normal operating range, 80 and 145 psi. I made a 5-second brake application and I hear no air loss from my blue service line, and I can also note I see no air loss from my primary and secondary air tanks. So, the next test I'm going to perform, I'm going to test the application or the function of my parking / spring brakes. I'm going to make sure that both valves are pulled out. I'm going to go and reattach my blue service line and remove my wheel chocks. Be right back. Too much like Miley Cyrus, and then when you're good, you tell the examiner that my brakes failed. Truck back. Next test I'm going to perform. I'm going to drain my air tanks. I'll have you meet me on the passengers or on the driver's side. I'm going to begin by draining my wet tank. Now the reason I know it's my wet tank because there is no gauge associated with it on the dash. My valve is opening, and my valve is closing. And I do not see any excessive moisture or debris exiting my air tank. Next, testing my secondary. I know it's my secondary because it has a gauge on the dash. The valve opens, the valve closes. And last but not least, I'm going to test my primary tank. Test my primary tank. I know it's my primary because it has a gauge on the dash. The valve opens, the valve closes, and there's no excessive moisture or debris. I don't have to say that. Now, the reason I wouldn't have to say that is because all the moisture and debris should have been taken out of my wet tank, as the reason we have a wet tank. Now I'm going to test the brake adjustment of my vehicle. To do this, I'm going to open my hood, I'm going to cant the wheel to the left, and I'm going to make sure my air pressure is above 90. I'm also going to chock my wheels and release my brakes. And we can do this little thing here with the chocking of the wheels, right? Perfect. Probably do a more professional, but today it's just I want to see how it turns out. I'm so curious right now. Time to release my spring brakes prior to shutting my truck off, because I want to make sure my vehicle is completely supplied with air, and I want to make sure it's sustaining air pressure above 90 psi. When I'm confident of this, I'll shut my truck off so I can begin the test. So I'm going to identify the type of brake chamber I have on this vehicle. So looking at the embossment on the back of my brake chamber, I can see that this is a LS brake chamber. And I know that an LS brake chamber of this sort, be it that it has a 24L stamped on it, has an adjustment limit of 2.5 inches. So if my push rod moves more than 2.5 inches, my vehicle would be defective. So I'm going to scribe my push rod as close to the brake chamber as possible with my push or with my soapstone. Then I'm going to make a brake application with my brake stick and make sure I keep my air pressure between 90 and 100 psi. So after making my brake application, I'm going to take my steering wheel and make sure my stick is properly fitted and locked on my pedal. Now, my air pressure is between 90 and 100. I got my tape measure. I'm going to measure the distance that the push rod has traveled. My push rod has traveled 1.25 inches. Had it moved more than 2.5 inches for a 24 LS brake chamber, my vehicle would be defective. The next test will be the demonstration of knowledge of defective vehicle conditions. Sorry. So before I perform that test, I'm going to remove my brake stick and reapply my spring brakes. So, for the last test, I'm going to demonstrate the knowledge I have of defective vehicle conditions. It is my responsibility to report all defects, and it is illegal for me to drive a defective vehicle on the road. Hope you pass your exam. I'm going to begin